The Day the Earth Stood Still, 1951, wasn't just another alien invasion movie. It was a political statement so dangerous that the US military refused to help. The star was blacklisted during production.
Influential science fiction films in Hollywood history, and The Day the Earth Stood Still.
The robot actor could only survive 30 minutes inside the costume. And the ending they filmed wasn't the ending they wanted. These are 16 facts about the film that dared to challenge America during the Cold War. Spencer Tracy said no. Spencer Tracy, one of Hollywood's biggest stars, read the script for The Day the Earth Stood Still and wanted to play Klaatu. He was perfect for the role, dignified, intelligent, and commanding. Producer Julian Blaustein rejected him immediately. The reason was simple. Tracy was too famous, too recognizable as a human actor. Audiences would never accept him as an alien from another planet. They needed someone unknown. Claude Rains was considered next, but he was performing on Broadway and couldn't commit. Finally, studio head Daryl F. Zanuck recommended Michael Rennie, a British actor he had recently seen performing in London. This became Rennie's first American film. Nobody in US theaters knew who he was, which made him perfect. The doorman who became Gort Locke. Martin wasn't an actor. He was a doorman at Grauman's Chinese Theater in Hollywood, California. Director Robert Wise needed someone impossibly tall to play the robot Gort. Casting directors searched Los Angeles for months. Then someone remembered the unusually tall doorman at Grauman's. Martin stood 7 feet, 7 inches tall, making him one of the tallest men in California. Wise hired him immediately. Martin had appeared in a few small film roles before, including Lost in a Harem, Anchors Aweigh, and Lady on a Train. He also worked as a live cowboy performer at Knott's Berry Farm and as a spokesman for Arden's Dairy. But he had never been the star of anything until Gort made him immortal. The costume that caused pain. The Gort costume was built from thick foam rubber painted with aluminum to create a metallic appearance. The headpiece was constructed from metal and plastic. Locke Martin, despite being 7 feet, 7 inches tall, was physically frail and delicate. He wasn't strong at all. The costume was so heavy that Martin could only wear it for approximately 30 minutes at a time before his body gave out. His arms had to remain stiff at his sides to maintain the robotic appearance. This position caused severe muscle spasms. If you watch carefully, you can see Gort's right arm twitching during certain scenes. That wasn't acting or special effects. That was Locke Martin experiencing actual muscle spasms from pain while trying to hold the pose inside the costume. 2 suits for seamless illusion. Director Robert Wise needed Gort to appear completely seamless from every camera angle. The solution required building 2 identical costumes. When Gort faced the camera, Locke Martin wore a suit with massive fasteners and laces running up the back. When the robot walked away from the camera, Martin wore a second suit with fasteners up the front. This trick meant audiences never saw the seams, no matter which direction Gort moved. Martin also used tiny periscope-like mirrors inside the helmet to see out through Gort's face. The helmet extended nearly a foot higher than Martin's actual head. Air holes were hidden under Gort's wide chin and jaw for breathing. He couldn't lift anyone. Several scenes required Gort to lift and carry Patricia Neal's character. Locke Martin wasn't strong enough to lift Neal while wearing the heavy costume. The production used multiple tricks to create the illusion. In shots from behind, where Gort carries Neal in his arms, it's actually a lightweight dummy, not the actress. When Neal needed to be hoisted up, wires lifted her off camera. Puppets and dummies replaced both Neal and Michael Rennie during certain carrying sequences. In the film's climactic scene, where Gort stands in the background while Klaatu ascends the spaceship ramp, Martin had to wear the suit off camera because he couldn't balance on the angled surface while wearing it. The military refused to help. The United States Department of Defense read the screenplay for The Day the Earth Stood Still and immediately refused all cooperation. They rejected the script based on its anti-war message and refusal to portray the military as heroes. The film criticized atomic weapons, questioned military authority, and suggested that humanity's violent nature endangered the entire universe. The Pentagon wanted no part of it. Director Robert Wise had to obtain military equipment from the 3rd Armored Cavalry Regiment stationed at Fort Meade in Maryland. The National Guard of Virginia supplied jeeps, tanks, soldiers, and equipment. If you look closely, one of the film's tanks bears the Brave Rifles insignia of the 3rd Armored Cavalry Regiment, proof of their assistance. The blacklist almost destroyed the cast. Sam Jaffe was cast as Professor Jacob Barnhart, the Einstein-like scientist who helps Klaatu. Shortly after signing his contract, Jaffe's name appeared in the Red Channels pamphlet, a publication listing performers with suspected communist connections. The Hollywood blacklist had begun. Studio executives wanted Jaffe fired immediately to avoid controversy. Producer Julian Blaustein refused. He appealed directly to studio head Daryl F. Zanuck, arguing that Jaffe had done nothing wrong and deserved to finish the film. Zanuck reluctantly agreed. Jaffe completed his role, but The Day the Earth Stood Still became his last Hollywood film for several years. He was blacklisted anyway and couldn't find work until the late 1950s. He went back to teaching mathematics to survive. Frank Lloyd designed the spaceship. The spaceship that lands in Washington, D.C. wasn't designed by typical Hollywood set designers. Production designer Thomas Little and art director Claude Carpenter collaborated directly with legendary architect Frank Lloyd Wright. Wright designed the spacecraft's smooth, organic curves and seamless appearance. The ship's door was filled with putty, then painted over to eliminate any visible seams. The design influenced science fiction cinema for decades. The spacecraft became iconic precisely because it didn't look like a typical 1950s flying saucer. It looked elegant, sophisticated, and genuinely alien. Wright's architectural philosophy of organic design translated perfectly to creating believable extraterrestrial technology. Bernard Herrmann's theremin score. Composer Bernard Herrmann created one of cinema's most influential science fiction scores using 2 theremins played by Dr. Samuel Hoffman. The theremin, an electronic instrument played without physical contact, produced eerie, otherworldly sounds perfect for alien encounters. Herrmann had previously worked with director Robert Wise on Orson Welles' Citizen Kane and The Magnificent Ambersons when Wise was still an editor. For The Day the Earth Stood Still, Herrmann composed a score that avoided traditional Hollywood orchestration. The music emphasized tension, mystery, and the unknowable nature of space. The theremin became synonymous with science fiction soundtracks for decades. Nearly every alien film made in the 1950s copied Herrmann's electronic approach. His score remains one of the greatest in cinema history. None of the actors went to Washington. The Day the Earth Stood Still is famously set in Washington, D.C., featuring scenes at the Lincoln Memorial, the Capitol Building, Union Station, and Arlington Cemetery. However, none of the principal cast members ever traveled to Washington during filming. Everything was shot at 20th Century Fox Studios in Los Angeles, California. A second unit crew filmed background plates and establishing shots in Washington, but Michael Rennie, Patricia Neal, and the other stars remained in California the entire time. Doubles wearing identical costumes were used for long shots showing characters walking around Washington landmarks. Close-ups of the actors were filmed against rear projection screens showing the second unit footage. The illusion was seamless and audiences never noticed. Klaatu Barada Nikto entered history. The phrase, Klaatu Barada Nikto, became one of the most famous lines in science fiction cinema. Helen Benson must say these words to Gort to prevent him from destroying Earth. The phrase has no actual meaning. It was invented by screenwriter Edmund H. North specifically for the film, but it entered popular culture permanently. George Lucas paid homage by naming 3 alien bounty hunters in the Star Wars trilogy: Klaatu, Barada, and Nikto. The phrase appears in countless films, television shows, books, and songs. In 2008, director Keanu Reeves insisted the phrase be included in the remake of The Day the Earth Stood Still, proving its enduring power decades later. The Carpenter symbolism. When Klaatu goes into hiding, he adopts the name Mr. Carpenter. Director Robert Wise didn't realize the Christian symbolism until years later when someone pointed it out. Carpenter refers to Jesus Christ, who worked as a carpenter before beginning his ministry. Klaatu, like Christ, arrives with a message of peace. He's rejected, persecuted, and killed by frightened humans. He's then resurrected through advanced technology and ascends back into the heavens. The entire film functions as a Cold War retelling of the Christ story. Screenwriter Edmund North deliberately structured the narrative this way, but Wise was so focused on the science fiction elements that he missed the religious allegory entirely until critics explained it. The physicist approved the equations. The mathematical equations written on Professor Barnhart's blackboard are authentic physics describing the famous three-body problem in Newtonian gravitation. This problem, which has no general closed-form solution, is central to navigation in interstellar space. A real physicist was hired to produce the work. The manner of writing and organization of the terms prove that someone with genuine expertise created the equations, not random scribbles that looked scientific. This attention to detail elevated The Day the Earth Stood Still above typical science fiction films that filled chalkboards with meaningless symbols. The production wanted intellectual credibility. They hired actual scientists as advisors, including science fiction writer Raymond F. Jones, who worked uncredited throughout production. It won for promoting peace. The Day the Earth Stood Still won the 1951 Golden Globe Award for Best Film Promoting International Understanding. This was extraordinary during the height of Cold War paranoia and McCarthyism. The film openly criticized nuclear weapons, questioned military authority, and suggested that humanity's violent nature endangered the universe. These were dangerous ideas in 1951 America. The military refused cooperation. Cast members were blacklisted. Yet the film succeeded both critically and commercially. In 1995, it was added to the U.S. National Film Registry by the Library of Congress for being deemed culturally, historically, or aesthetically significant. Today, it holds a 97% rating on Rotten Tomatoes. Reagan quoted it to Gorbachev. In 1985, President Ronald Reagan met with Soviet leader Mikhail Gorbachev during summit negotiations. Reagan told Gorbachev, quote, "I occasionally think how quickly our differences worldwide would vanish if we were facing an alien threat from outside this world," end quote. This was a direct reference to The Day the Earth Stood Still's central message. 2 years later, Reagan repeated the sentiment to the United Nations. Lou Cannon and Colin Powell both believed the film profoundly influenced Reagan's thinking about global unity. A science fiction movie from 1951 shaped Cold War diplomacy 35 years later. The film's warning about humanity's self-destructive nature resonated across generations and influenced actual world leaders during critical moments in history. The alternate ending. They wanted the ending audiences saw in theaters wasn't the ending the filmmakers originally wanted. In the released version, Klaatu delivers his ultimatum, returns to his spaceship with Gort, and ascends into the sky while humanity watches. The screen fades to black with the decision left to humanity. But screenwriter Edmund North wanted something darker. His original ending had Klaatu's spaceship disappearing, then the film cutting to stock footage of atomic bombs exploding. The implication was clear. Humanity rejected the warning and destroyed itself. Studio executives rejected this conclusion as too depressing and politically dangerous. They forced a more ambiguous ending that at least offered hope. North's darker vision remained locked in the script archives, never filmed. They cast a doorman as a robot. They blacklisted the cast. They defied the military. and they created a message so powerful that presidents quoted it 30 years later. The Day the Earth Stood Still proved that science fiction could be smart, political, and dangerous. Subscribe for more deep dives into the films that changed history and challenged America.